I'm just going to introduce Tom Heinold, who's in the room with me here in Peoria. He's my Chief of Operations, and he's going to take charge of today's navigation panel. So, Tom, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, sir. Again, I'm Tom Heinold. I'm the Chief of Operations for Rock Island District. We've got 12 locks on the Mississippi, and 6 of the 8 are in Rock Island on the Illinois Waterway. Most of what I do, in addition to flood risk management and ecosystem, natural resource management, environmental stewardship, recreation, the preponderance of our mission here in Rock Island is navigation. And so kind of a center of mass for the district, especially this past summer, has been the Illinois Waterway. We are just wrapping up. In fact, today at noon, the first boat should pass through Marcel's and Starved Rock locks, marking the reopening or the restoration of traffic moving on the river again. So thanks for joining us today. I think we've got a great panel for you. I think I've seen everybody on. Hopefully everybody is able to join us. I actually wish I could have had more members on the panel because I'm excited about the river, and we could probably talk about this for 2 or 3 hours. There is a lot going on there. We're just starting to make some reinvestments into the river. One of the things about the Illinois Waterway that makes it unique is that it operates 24/7, 365 as a navigation system. And so a system like that is really, really hard to maintain, because when you maintain it, oftentimes we have to get in the chamber with floating plant, we have to dewater locks, things like that. So we ended up having to do that this summer. Truthfully, it was overdue, but we have had some amazing support from our sponsors, our partners, no matter who you are up and down the river, whether you're a towboat company or a grain elevator or the Farm Bureau, the Illinois Waterway, or the Illinois Corn Growers, the Illinois Soybean Association, whether you're from the Illinois River Carriers Association, American Waterways Operators, Waterways Council International. We have had some just amazing support for the work that we've been doing this summer, and we'll do again in 2023. And I'm very, very proud of the team that we've assembled here. So I know we've got some pre-recorded videos, kind of a welcome and an opening from our panel members. So we can start with that. And after that, those introductions and those opening remarks, then we can open the floor to any questions that come in through the chat and get on with the discussion. So, Sam?
Hello, my name is Matthew Coffelt. I'm a program manager with the Rock Island District Army Corps of Engineers. I manage our program for all major maintenance construction projects on the Illinois Waterway locks and dams. I'm also the project manager for the Illinois Waterway Consolidated Closures.
Good day. I am Lynn Muench with the American Waterways Operators. AWO is a national trade association for the towboat, and barge industry. AWO's more than 300 members own and operate vessels on the rivers, the coasts, and the Great Lakes. The industry's 40,000 vessel-strong industry provides family wage jobs and ladders of career opportunity for more than 50,000 Americans, including 38,000 positions as mariners, moving 760 million tons of cargo critical to the U.S. economy every year. Illinois ranks number 9 in the country with 19,500 maritime domestic jobs and an economic impact of $4.87 billion annually to the state of Illinois. So why is the state of Illinois and the Illinois River critical to the barge industry? Illinois is a major exporter of agricultural products. The towing industry moves fertilizer into Illinois cost effectively and moves a majority of the exports to New Orleans, also cost effectively, making them competitive in the world market. Illinois is also the highway for critical goods to the Chicago region, including road salt, construction materials, chemicals that are key ingredients for manufacturing, and petroleum products such as jet fuel. It is critical that the Corps and the Coast Guard manage this maritime domestic supply chain as the economic engine it is. The integrity, continuity, and reliability of the supply chain transportation mode, the Illinois River, is critical to the state of Illinois and indeed to the nation. Let me briefly discuss 4 critical issues for AWO members. First, I am sure others will mention this. The concurrent closures and intense rehab work on the aged locks on the Illinois River this year was well orchestrated. Doing this work in 1 year versus over several years alleviated many reliability concerns. We are pleased that the Corps will incorporate a similar process into their work in 2023. This was an efficient use of tax dollars, and it will benefit the state and the nation for years to come. Second, safety and environmental stewardship are driving forces within the AWO membership. AWO members go above and beyond government requirements by mandating that each member company have a safety management system. AWO and the Coast Guard went to Congress asked to be an inspected class of vessels, which we now are, but the safety management system further improves safety and environmental protection with a set of third-party audited expectations for training, maintenance, and continuous improvement. We believe the Corps and other governmental agencies would improve safety with vetting procedures for contracts to include safety management systems. Third, the Brandon Road Selected Plan, if implemented as described, would negatively impact the efficiency and the safety of the sole commerce connection between the Western Rivers and the Great Lakes. The industries that rely on the Illinois River for commerce creates 1.7 million jobs. Electricity in the water would make transiting the area extremely dangerous to crews and the public. Several features would decrease capacity significantly. This is an unnecessary expenditure of valuable tax dollars as the state of Illinois, with the help of several federal agencies, continue to overfish and economically use Asian carp, moving the population further south. Fourth, this is an industry that is American-owned and American-crewed. Jobs cannot be exported. The crews provide valuable assets for the national economy and also for the national security. Thank you for inviting me today, and I look forward to your questions.
Hey everyone, I'm Paul Ruddy, Vice President of the Midwest area for Waterways Council. We're an association advocating to improve our inland waterway infrastructure that moves hundreds of millions of tons each year. Our members include the carriers and shippers representing diverse backgrounds of manufacturing, petroleum and petrochemicals, utilities, agriculture, just to name a few. They manufacture and grow the products that move by barge that are the underpinning of our economy, things that frankly every American uses without even thinking about it. And all those products rely on barges and locks and dams to move them to where they're destined. Sometimes that's markets all over the world. We've got economic development interests and contractors engaged, and are particularly proud of our organized labor members that are part of our broad coalition focused on river transportation issues. We're a stakeholder with Rock Island District as it relates to a reliable and efficient navigation system, as you'd imagine, and foremost in that is the operation and maintenance for its infrastructure and maintaining the channel. And we're now able to point to the long overdue rehabilitation at LaGrange Lock and Dam. And we continue to push for the advancement of design work and an eventual start of the Navigation and Ecosystem Sustainability Program, known as NESP. And to that end, we work on Capitol Hill and back here in the basin with conservation groups who want to see both the navigation component and the ecosystem restoration component move forward with the NESP program. So finally, to quote President Lincoln, the best way to predict your future is to create it. Waterways Council is poised to help ensure a sustainable and vibrant future for this resource. And I appreciate the relationship that we have with Rock Island District and look forward to continuing to advocate for the appropriations and authorization that advance the navigation mission for the district.
Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy Tardy. I work for American Commercial Barge Line as Director of Vessel Operations on locking rivers. Having 19 years of experience in the industry, 16 of those as a licensed captain, I head up the Captain's Committee for IRCA. IRCA is the Illinois River Carriers Association, a nonprofit organization that works with state and federal partners to help keep waterborne commerce moving on the Illinois River. My capacity with IRCA gives me the opportunity to work with stakeholders, the Coast Guard, and our friends here with Rock Island District Corps of Engineers to mitigate any kind of delays or closures that we might have, and we promote the safe and efficient operation of towing vessels on the water, all while being respectful of the environment and, of course, our neighbors here on the waterway. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to any kind of questions you might have, and here to enjoy the day. Thanks so much.
Hello, this is BJ Murray. I'm the Section Chief of Marine Program Planning for the Illinois Department of Transportation, and it's my pleasure to talk to you today at this Discover the Illinois Waterway event. The Illinois Marine Transportation System consists of 1,118 miles of commercially navigable waterways providing access to the Gulf of Mexico. The Illinois Marine Transportation System allows Illinois to have one of the largest marine commercial navigation systems of all the inland states. In addition to its rivers, the state borders on 60 miles of navigable Lake Michigan waters, which provides access to the Atlantic Ocean via the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Seaway system. In 2015, the Illinois Department of Transportation began taking an active role in the marine transportation system as we began to see the impacts on the Illinois roadway system from increased truck movements when the waterways were negatively impacted by fluctuating water levels and closures of locks and dams. As such, IDOT has taken the lead on freight transportation issues relative to the Illinois Marine Transportation System in coordination with other agencies, states, and federal government with the goals of prioritizing intermodal and or multimodal port assets, mitigating construction, increasing stewardship, increasing marine transportation system utility, including resilience, and better leveraging the overall Illinois freight transportation portfolio. In 2018, IDOT initiated the first ever Illinois Marine Transportation System Plan and Economic Impact Analysis Study. The purpose of the study is to provide the state a comprehensive understanding of the marine system from a commerce and transportation perspective. The study also assesses the economic impact of ports on the state and the economic contributions of major industries that rely on the Illinois Marine Transportation System. Additionally, the study provides a system-level identification of needs for ports, terminals, waterways, and associated navigation facilities, along with programmatic recommendations for action. This study will be completed in November and will be placed on the IDOT website for comment. IDOT has recently begun providing technical and capital assistance to port facilities. In 2019, the governor and the state legislature passed a Rebuild Illinois infrastructure bill that included $150 million for ports and waterways. We hope to have a call for project this fall or early winter. IDOT is also providing technical oversight and funding for 4 port master plans, a port expansion study, 2 industry research projects, and has awarded recently over $15 million in National Highway Freight Program funds toward port-related projects through the Illinois Competitive Freight Program. The 2 research projects that I mentioned that are being undertaken through the University of Illinois Center for Transportation are a maritime freight data collection system and database to support performance measures and market analysis, and a beneficial use of dredge material from the Illinois Marine Transportation System. The objectives of the marine freight data study are to create an integrated, comprehensive, and maintainable database of marine freight to, from, and through Illinois, and corresponding performance metrics to demonstrate the use of the database and metrics for IDOT planning and programming purposes such as market analysis and performance-based funding and project selection practices with a series of recommended evaluation, priority, and ranking criteria. This study is also nearing completion. The objective of the beneficial use of dredge material study is to determine how dredge material can be more widely used in IDOT projects and other applicable civic improvement programs. Also, recently IDOT was asked to participate in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers beneficial use subgroup, which was tasked with identifying and developing ways to use dredge material productively. Obviously, we were excited about the opportunity to work with the Corps on this ongoing effort. That's all I have for today, so thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Let's start the question and answer with an easy one for Matt. Matt Coffelt is, of course, one of our own in the Corps of Engineers and largely responsible for the great work that has been going out on the Illinois Waterway this summer. Matt is an extremely talented project manager, and I don't even know all of the things that he has done behind the scenes to work with contractors, with construction, with engineering, with operations, with fleets from St. Paul District and equipment from St. Louis District and others, many floating plant. So Matt, I'll start off the questions with you. What did it take to execute the consolidated closures on the Illinois Waterway this summer, and exactly why were those needed?
Hey, Tom. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess starting off, really the primary effort was done well in advance of actually starting the closures. In order to pull off such a large effort like this, we had to start years in advance with coordinating with all of the various stakeholders and reaching out and gathering feedback on the best approach to, I guess, put the plan together. So that had to start very early on. I think that was critical in making it an overall success. I mean, here we are on the 29th, like you mentioned earlier, opening up the last remaining locks today. So it really took a pretty big planning effort, starting about 3 years in advance of the closures, and like I said, various presentations, reaching out to industry, getting feedback to establish the overall plan, and then from that point, the rest of it, actually completing all of the work during the closures. I'd like to say was somewhat of the easy part, although it had quite a bit of challenges associated with it. It did take a tremendous amount of coordination and communication, not only just within our internal core team, but also with our contractors, again, with all of the various stakeholders, and keeping them continuously updated with progress and how things were going, and just kind of keeping them updated on where we're at. One of the, I guess, to me, a tremendous accomplishment, because we don't do this very often in a lot of our construction contracts, is the kind of collaboration of utilizing both our assets within Rock Island District, within our operations division, and kind of combining that with contractors. So at several of these sites, we had work that we had to do to support the contractors' efforts, and so that definitely took daily communication on site to ensure that everybody kind of understood where we're at, what the task was at hand, and that was a tremendous accomplishment in my eyes to help keep everything moving forward, and ultimately to maintain our schedule and to be opening up on time.
Thanks, Matt. And I think you have the thanks of the entire navigation community as well. There is so much that could go wrong and has gone wrong, truthfully. You know, at the beginning of the season, we couldn't have foreseen things like so many Asian carp in the chamber at Starved Rock that we couldn't even pump down the chamber because there were fish clogging the pumps, to greaseless pintle balls, to miter gates that wouldn't get into miter or into recess, to a derecho storm that flew across the area in the middle of August there, to COVID concerns and flooding early on in the year. You and your team have overcome just an unbelievable amount of obstacles to get the waterway back open, and I know the navigation industry sincerely appreciates that. So let's move on to a couple of our panelists that are very, very, that it strikes home. For one is probably that strikes home very, very dear and close to home is Jeremy Tardy. Jeremy Tardy is the chairman of the Illinois River Carriers Association, and actually works for a barge company. I know having no towing on the Illinois Waterway because we have only single locks, and when you close down one lock, of course, you choke down the entire system. So industry convinced us to shut down multiple locks at the same time and get as much work done as we possibly can, but I know this summer still hurts. So Jeremy, from your perspective, what has this summer been like, and what are some of your concerns for navigation and the reliability of the Illinois Waterway navigation system?
Hey, Tom, can you hear me?
Sure can, Jeremy.
Okay. Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, it was quite a hurdle this year with having to cease navigation on the waterway to allow time to have all these projects completed. But as been stated already on this call, they were very much needed, and I know the navigation community deeply appreciates the work that was done and all the hurdles that were managed and challenges that were just overcome throughout all this. So kudos to you guys and your team for managing all that in a timely way and being very transparent along the way. As for the planning leading up to the closures, from where I sit, I really can't take much credit. I kind of got into the chair with IRCA well after a lot of the heavy lifting was done, and so I came in a position to just kind of manage what was already done and just help be a liaison between industry and Corps and Coast Guard, and just send out as many communications and keep everyone updated as much as I could. And we had these weekly calls every Friday for updates, and sometimes with just great news, and then there were challenges, and just an impressive job overall with how all that was managed. So thanks again for that. But looking forward, I just hung up with Mike Walsh a few minutes ago. He gave me the good news that the first tow ought to be going through Marseilles, I think, at around 11 o'clock today, a southbound three-piece unit tow. So very happy to see commerce start moving again on the waterway. And I think he said he was heading to Starved Rock after that, and probably around noontime we'll start locking there. So the entire industry is very excited to get moving again and start supporting our customers and the local economy and the U.S. economy. The Illinois Waterway plays a huge, vital role in that. So very excited for the reliability moving forward, and appreciate all the work that was done.
Thanks, Jeremy. And I know I appreciate your involvement, and we've been having weekly calls all summer long, status updates. And we don't have the river back, even though we're passing traffic. Things aren't going to quite be back to normal. We've got switch boats, I think, still moving unpowered cuts at LaGrange, for instance, because the tow haulage isn't installed yet, and other concerns like that. And we're working as hard as we can to get back to as normal as we can, as soon as we can. So thanks, Jeremy. I really appreciate your involvement in those and for keeping the pressure on us. Whatever you're doing is working. So thank you very much for that. Moving on then to Lynn with American Waterways operators. I guess not a lot of people realize that there are organizations like yours working in the background and advocating for our rivers and waterways. So what are some of your concerns, and how could Congress or the administration or the Corps of Engineers or anybody on the phone here, what could they do to help improve the process of lock modernization and some of the other things that are needed on our waterway here in Illinois?
So thanks for the question, and really thinking about how to expand it. What can Congress and the administration in particular do to make the the maritime domestic supply chain have integrity and continuity. And there's 5 that I would say are easy to pick out, but there's probably more than this. First, I know Paul's on the phone, but WCI has done some pretty heavy lifting to put into order the 75% change in how the locks are paid for. And I think that cost share change would be huge from making sure that the benefits get to the nation a lot faster with probably less cost because you could do things faster. I think also authorizing and funding new dredges or increasing funding to hire private dredges would be huge for the industry. I mean, every year we fight over dredges on the lower miss between shallow draft and deep draft. I think everybody that was on the upper Mississippi this year will tell you that was a huge challenge to have dredges where they needed to be at all times. And I think the Pathfinder, it was built in 1933, so we have a really old equipment that needs to be updated. I think also improved contracting processes, just making it more businesslike and time sensitive. There's a lot of issues with not just dredges, but other contracts being able to move as fast as they need to move if we're not going to interrupt the supply chain. And I think if Congress would fund projects to completion, I mean, not just here's some money for this year, here's some money for that next year, but really to go forth with funding to get a project to the end. It would decrease costs significantly, and once again, it brings benefits to the nation much quicker. And the other thing that's really outside of the core purview, but really key, is Congress needs to push the Coast Guard to give them money for new cutters, and so that the ATON placement is better than it has been for the last few years. I mean, they're dealing with also security, Social Security aged vessels that are not doing the job, breaking down routinely, lots of unscheduled, off the river. So we need to make sure that gets improved quickly. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Lynn. On then to Paul Rohde with Waterways Council International. What is AWO's position on, what's WCI's position rather on how the Corps is working with stakeholders and what we can do to make improvements along the Illinois Waterway? And if you could, in your answer, I know it was mentioned in the opening comments, but mention something about the Navigation and Ecosystem Sustainability Program from your perspective too, if you would. And it looks like Paul may be muted too. There you are. There you go. Got you loud and clear now.
Tom, thanks for having me on, and thank you for this forum. I just want to tip my hat to Rock Island District on the way you managed the closures this summer. For the last several years, we've had a lot of consternation from our members and river stakeholders concerning a closure of this important waterway, and being able to, especially the rehab of LaGrange, bring that up to 1936 standards. I know you hate when I say that, but it really was well done. So kudos to the Rock Island team. Regarding the NEST program, we have so many members that are so involved in advocating for that program. With the end of congressionally directed spending or earmarks, came the end of really the pre-construction engineering and design. And so we were really pleased to see last year USDA step up and come out with that report. You may recall in August at Mel Price, Secretary Perdue and ASA R.D. James
we're at Mount Price Lock and Dam to unveil this report on the importance of the upper mist locks, in particular, of course, to agriculture. We all know that. And so it really, I think, was the fulcrum that got us some funding, not a lot, but a little bit of funding to restart PED. We've already spent millions on studies and even on PED in the past, starting back in FY05, I think was the first year, through a continuing resolution for the start of PED, even before it was authorized in 2007. And so the challenge has been, with that program being dormant, is keeping our congressional delegation informed about it. It's tough when it's just a concept. But now that we have design work and we're inching closer to that, a construction start, it's really been great for us in educating Congress on the importance of this program. And very recently, as like Monday, there was a bicameral letter that was sent to Secretary James and General Spellman specifically about starting NEST in the FY21 work plan and making sure that FY20 PED wasn't just a one-off, continuing the progress in FY21. And we had 49 legislators sign on to this. It was very bipartisan, 23 Republicans, 26 Democrats, 11 senators, 38 House members representing 10 states that stood up. And really two things stand in my mind with these kind of letters that Congress sends around. Number one, it was a very short turnaround from the time that Senators Blunt and Senator Durbin, who were the Senate leads, and on the House side is Congresswoman Bustos from Illinois and Congressman Jason Smith from Southern Missouri. So with a short turnaround, getting the attention of staffers to do something like have their boss stand up for something, particularly with all of what was going on with the Supreme Court, and of course we're hurtling towards an election, and it's very partisan atmosphere up there in D.C. But also with COVID, that really has been a changer as far as advocacy goes. You can't do in-person meetings with legislators or even or staffers. They're all working from home. And so that really has been a change for us this year. And how do you advocate for the funding or authorization issues and all of the issues that Lynn had mentioned as well in that kind of environment? So it's really been a challenge. And one of the things that we've leaned on is technology, like what we're using now. And for my members, I need to make it as easy as possible for them to connect to their legislators. So we have a lot of programs to do that. When I'm on the speaker circuit, I always hold my phone up and say, everybody's an advocate with this thing. You just text the word locks to the number 52886, and you can plug into Waterways Council's advocacy program. And we have pre-written letters to Congress that people can edit if they desire, or just send it off just through the ease of your cell phone. We have an action center on our website where you can do the same. We have a section of our website on how to host a virtual event. We've got a lot of members that love to have members of Congress take tours of their facility. And if they're just not able to do that with COVID, there's still ways to connect electronically and do a virtual hosting of a site. So it really has been a challenge, but we're so supportive of the NEST program, and it really is a rallying point for the diversity of our coalition. Of course, we have the carriers, and as I mentioned in my video, the shippers, and agriculture is a huge part of that, especially in the state of Illinois and the Illinois Waterway, but also on the construction side, the contractors and organized labor are really important part of our the diverse coalition that we have, and having everybody rallying around not just NEST, of course O&M and the LaGrange rehab, but also and the construction in other parts of the country, but especially getting a start of construction for the NEST program.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate you and your organization. I see Tracy Z was able to join us after all, and he's on. So you didn't say anything terribly offensive with your boss looking over your shoulder, so I appreciate that. I do have a question for BJ Murray from the Illinois Department of Transportation. Before I ask it, I just want to remind folks that funding for the navigation business line of the Corps of Engineers is a little bit strange sometimes. So if you are on the call here or listening in on YouTube or watching on YouTube posted following this event today, just keep in mind that funding for the Corps of Engineers is actually energy and water funding. A lot of people get confused because the word Army appears in our organization's name, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. However, we don't get Department of Defense funding for the navigation system. And navigation sure looks like transportation, but the Corps of Engineers Civil Works side of the house doesn't get any transportation funding either. So what we do in the Corps of Engineers is entirely out of the energy and water appropriation. And so if you are advocating on the Hill or within your organizations anywhere, do remind folks that it's energy and water funding if you want the Corps of Engineers to do anything like Lynn, of course, mentioned dredging or NESP or any of the programs, the operation and maintenance, which I'm charged with. It's all energy and water funding. So with that caveat, and since I mentioned transportation particularly, I know we've got BJ Murray on the phone from the Illinois Department of Transportation. We've cooperated with a couple of little projects for beneficial use of dredged material and some other things. But I just wanted you to have an opportunity to chime in and let us know what IDOT's current role is in water transportation.
Yes, thanks, Tom. Yeah, so the Illinois Department of Transportation obviously is a transportation-centric agency. And we talked about the 4 R's, so rivers, runways, roads, and rail. And we're trying to become a more multimodal agency. And as such, roads being one of the largest component of that, we're always looking for ways to reduce congestion by utilizing mode shifts. So we're trying to move, obviously, trucks to rail and obviously barge. We're looking to reduce emissions, truck emissions, trying to reduce fatalities, truck car fatalities. And as we know that utilization of the barges and the waterways is one of the most safest modes of transportation there is. And while doing that, we're obviously trying to increase the environmental stewardship and resiliency. And so, some of the initiatives that we've undertaken to try to facilitate that is we, for the first time ever, we have a long-range transportation plan, and we've included maritime as part of that. We have a suite of planning efforts that go into that for each of the different modes. And again, marine transportation is now one of those. For the first time ever, we did utilize Illinois competitive freight funds for port projects. We're now doing several planning efforts, port master plans at some of our 19 public port districts. And for the first time in a long time, the state of Illinois has, as part of the overarching capital improvement investment program that was passed by the state legislature and the governor recently, $150 million was set aside for port capital improvements. And so 40 of that was kind of earmarked for the Cairo port terminal project, and that's now kind of underway with some of the soft planning efforts and engineering, and we have developed guidance and selection criteria and those type of things, and we anticipate doing a call for projects shortly. Also, we did the first ever, and I mentioned this in my opening remarks, the first ever Illinois Marine Transportation System Plan and Economic Impact Analysis Study. And so being the Department of Transportation, we didn't have a lot of knowledge of our of the waterway systems, to be quite honest. And so we did a study that looked at the port districts and the waterways and all the components of it, and looked at what's being moved up and down the river and to and from and through the port districts. Through that study, we identified that $360 billion in economic impact from the marine transportation system. It supports about 170,000 jobs, and one of the things we found was the top commodities are in Illinois are food and food products, which account for about 40% of the total tonnage. Prior to 2018, more in 2016, it was coal. Obviously, coal is now less of a factor for a lot of obvious reasons. But I know Tom mentioned container on barge. We look for great things as some of the larger companies like, say, Amazon and UPS and the box stores, once they can identify a use of the container on barge system, we hope that will help alleviate some of the trucks on the roadway system. So those are just a few of the initiatives that we've got going, and hope to continue to work with all the stakeholders. It's been a pleasure working with the Corps and all the other state and local and federal agencies that we've dealt with. So with that, I will turn it back over to you.
Thanks, BJ. You've been a great partner too. We're looking forward to forging ahead with a strong relationship with the IDOT and all of our navigation stakeholders and partners. It's been fantastic. Since you mentioned the 4 R's, now would probably be a great time to just take a very, very short break. Those roads, rivers, runways, and rails, and the rivers, of course, is what we're talking about today. Sam, I know, has a video queued up from a Built to Last crew. Built to Last and Answers Media as a crew out of a PBS affiliate out of Chicago. Built to Last is they do a half-an-hour-long TV show, and they came to us on the Illinois Waterway this summer to interview folks and take some footage about all the great work that we're doing out on the river, so that the public can gain an appreciation for just how important this waterway is to all of us. So, Sam, if you could roll that, please.
This was built on last year. They had 2 segments of an episode that ran, and if you haven't seen that, it's available on YouTube. It's up on the Waterways Council website under useful resources. We've got links, and I invite you to take a look at it. It's got it stars Tom Heinold and Marty Huddle and a cast of a handful.
Yeah, they were a little bit difficult to accommodate on site because we did have active construction sites going on, and so hats off to our construction personnel and our contractors who were able to accommodate that crew. But I think they're really going to be able to tell our story and get some great support for the waterways. So if that video pops in, I think we'll all take a break and watch it. It's only a couple minutes long, but again, the clock is ticking here. We don't have too much time.
Agriculture in the state of Illinois is a $19 billion economic impact. It's the #1 industry in the state.
We produce the best products, I think, anywhere in the world, whether it's corn, whether it's soybeans, whether it's ethanol, but you got to have good infrastructure.
Everyone, when they think about infrastructure, they think roads, runways, and rail.
We don't think about the waterways because we don't drive on them, but we do know the impact they have if they ever go down.
We're living on borrowed time with some of these locks and dams. LaGrange is a good example.
We're doing a major rehabilitation of the LaGrange Lock and Dam. We're replacing a whole bunch of the original 1930s concrete.
They took off the whole interior of the chamber walls, resurfaced it.
I'm so proud of the work that's been done by skilled union tradespeople from all over the state and all over the region, as well as my own folks who are dedicated government employees. NESP also includes an ecosystem component.
NESP allows us to work in concert. We're not just doing one while the other waits.
NESP is going to be a 20-year program. There are 7 locks that need to be upgraded.
It's a huge for the local economy. It's over $100 million project.
When it's all said and done, you can not only point to it with pride, you can count on it It's going to be there when you need it.
This is going to pay benefits long term for the economy of Illinois.
You know, the 2020 closures have been quite a challenge, but closing 5 locks at the same time is a really big deal. And we work with the navigation industry. They're going to have about a 2-year break from a lot of big construction, renovation, and rehabilitation. But in 2023, we're going to do this again to some extent. So, Matt, I wanted to ask you, what is in the works for 2023, and what can we expect?
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be very similar to how 2020 kind of got started. We are starting to develop an initial plan on what we believe will be included in the 2023 plan. We've kind of looked at, I guess, priority as far as what sites need additional work, what is kind of on the I guess, top of the list in priority on the Illinois and in the work that needs to get done during a closure or during a dewatering. And so we're starting to develop that for 2023. It is in the pretty early stages, so I don't know that I want to go into a lot of details on specific sites and how much. I will say that we were not able to accomplish every site we wanted to do in 2020. There was some work at Brandon Road associated with getting bulkhead recesses installed there. So that is one item that we will definitely be looking at trying to get accomplished. We are looking at doing some additional work at Starved Rock and Marseilles associated with the electrical system at Marseilles and the sector gears at Starved Rock to try and get all of the work that some of these sites need completed in one round of closures is extremely difficult. The biggest challenge tends to be trying to get all of the funding lined up that we need to do this work. And so that's kind of where we're at right now with the 2023 plan. We're trying to identify a funding plan moving forward that will allow us to obtain the funding that we need to get the contracts in place to kind of really bring the 2023 plan together. But again, just like during 2020 in the initial planning stages of that, we will be putting together what we believe to be the plan and then reaching out to industry for some feedback on that and trying to make adjustments where it makes sense.
Great, Matt. Thanks. That's going to be another amazing effort. Hopefully not quite as intensive as this year. I think we've got LaGrange behind us. That major rehab, boy, you can't even tell that's the same lock. It's a wonderful improvement down there, and we should not need to revisit that, hopefully, in 2023, nor Peoria. Did a lot of work at Peoria, but on upstream fortunately, the lower usage locks, we are going to have to experience some necessary pain again in 2023. I would remind folks, too, that there still is some risk. Matt alluded to it. But if our intent all along is that between the 2020 closures and the 2023 closures, we should be able to get it all done and have a reliable system for the next 20, 25 years and not have to have any major extended, 90-day closures for quite a while. If we don't get the funding that we need in FY21 and 22 to award the contracts in time to award, long lead time fabrications, gate fabrications, and things like that. If we don't get that in time, we may have to push those 2023 closures out to 2024. Also, Lynn mentioned before the Asian carp thing going on at Brandon Road. If that looks like it's going to happen in 2024, we don't want to do navigation improvements in 2023 and then just be closed right in 2024. We'll push that to make those that construction concurrent if we possibly can. But we can't wait. We can't wait until probably 2025 to make that happen. There is some critical maintenance out there that does need to happen. So before I know time is running short, I've just got a couple of minutes. I'm going to leave it, I think, here with just a couple of minutes remaining. Like I said, we could talk about navigation all day long, whether it's NEST or or routine maintenance or major rehabilitation. I know I'm going to brief the Inland Waterways Users Board tomorrow with an update for the closures. We have so many valued partners and stakeholders on the call with us today at this event. I want to thank you all for your participation today, particularly our panel members and our partners out there that are, that are making this country strong. This inland waterway transportation system, especially the upper Mississippi, where we're sitting right in the middle of the world's breadbasket, this is what makes our economy strong. And this all eventually, every investment we make on this river goes right back to our economy and our own back pockets as taxpayers. There's definitely a return on investment here. So thank you to Matt, BJ, Lynn, Paul, Jeremy for everything you do. And with that, I know that, again, time is marching forward, and the Illinois Waterway, in my world, is mostly about transportation, but I know that there are a lot of links to the other business lines and other functions of the river besides navigation. And we do everything that we can to accommodate the other needs of the rivers. We already talked about ecosystem restoration, environmental uses of the river, and we're going to transition now into flood risk management and emergency management, and a very important function of the river that will save lives and properties, immeasurable benefits to the waterway system. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Colonel Steve Sattinger, and he'll transition us into the next hour of our event. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Tom. And thanks to our panel members. Again, the external partners we had, Paul and Lynn, Jeremy Tardy, and BJ. Great to see you all. Thanks so much for your participation.